One late night in Paris, Driss is driving his employer, Philippe, through the city. When waiting in traffic becomes too boring, Driss decides to break the speed limit, weaving through cars and ignoring traffic signs. This reckless driving attracts the attention of the police, and Driss bets €100 that he can escape them. However, after driving under a bridge, the police ambush them from both sides and catch up. Driss, unfazed, raises the stakes, this time betting €200 that he can get them a police escort. Stepping out of the car, he puts on an act, appearing offended and insisting that Philippe, who is disabled, was in urgent need of hospital care. The officers check the trunk and F in a wheelchair, confirming his claim. When they approach Philippe, they see him convulsing, another act to sell the story. Believing it's an emergency, the police overlook the speeding violation and offer to escort them to the hospital. To celebrate his win, Driss plays September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. Upon arrival, as soon as the cops leave, he shares a smoke with Philippe and promises to handle it before driving away, just before the hospital staff can reach them. This unlikely friendship began months earlier when Philippe and his assistant Magali were holding interviews for a new caregiver. The process wasn't going well, as most applicants gave either overly formal or awkward answers. Then, Driss suddenly barged in, ignoring the queue. He wasn't even there for the job, but just wanted his unemployment papers signed to confirm he wasn't hired. Blunt and a bit rude, he even flirted with Magali. However, Philippe found him amusing and asked him to return the next day for his signed papers. That evening, Driss returned home to a modest neighborhood, attempting to take a bath while his younger siblings constantly interrupted him. He finally managed to do so with the help of his older and more responsible sister, Mina. While waiting for their mother to arrive, Driss glanced out the window and noticed his younger brother, Adama, stepping out of a suspicious car. When Adama entered the apartment, he casually claimed he had been at school before grabbing his bag and leaving again, making Driss even more certain that his brother was up to something. In the evening, Driss's mother arrives and he gives her a Fabergé egg he stole, casually telling her that he has been away on vacation. However, she isn't pleased to see him. He had disappeared for 6 months without a single call, only to return as if her home were a hotel. Fed up with his lies and already overwhelmed with taking care of her other children, she kicks him out and tells him not to come back. That night, Driss spends time smoking and snacking with some neighborhood friends. The next day, he returns to Philippe's house to collect his signed papers. He is greeted by Yvonne, the housekeeper, who gives him a tour of the house and explains Philippe's daily routine. She also shows him the room he would have if he accepted the job, complete with his own bathroom. Driss can't help but admire the bathtub before being pulled away to meet Philippe. Philippe hands him the signed paper but also offers him a job opportunity. Driss accepts the 1-month trial, and Philippe confidently bets that he won't last 2 weeks. After moving his belongings into his room, Driss begins learning how to care for Philippe. He is taught how to keep Philippe's legs stimulated, transfer him into a wheelchair, assist him with showering, and help him change clothes. Things get awkward when Driss realizes he must put compression stockings on Philippe and even clean him after using the bathroom. Despite his protests and initial reluctance, he eventually accepts these tasks as part of the job. Later in the evening, while enjoying a snack on the rooftop, he is interrupted by Philippe's daughter, Elisa, and her boyfriend, Bastien, who are looking for a private place to make out. Annoyed, Driss kicks them out, refusing even to share his beer. Over time, he starts adapting to Philippe's daily routine, though he makes a few mistakes in the beginning. Driss gradually learns how to assist Philippe properly. At first, he makes small mistakes, like handing him the phone instead of placing it by his ear or forgetting the baby monitor while taking a bath. He also takes on the task of organizing Philippe's mail into different folders. While he opens most letters for him, there is a set of private ones he is strictly forbidden from reading. When Driss stumbles upon a flyer promoting female escorts, he decides to create a separate file for them instead of throwing them away, as Philippe jokingly suggests that not everything has to be about work. Despite his new responsibilities, Driss makes sure to enjoy himself. He persistently flirts with Magali, though she remains uninterested, and occasionally calls escorts to keep him company. One morning, Yvonne storms into his room to scold him for being late and notices some dangerous weapons in his bag. However, she chooses not to comment on them, at least not yet. That day, Driss is tasked with driving Philippe around. However, he refuses to place him in the back of a van like cargo, opting instead for one of the luxurious cars that rarely get used. Philippe initially insists on being practical, but the idea of a faster and more exciting ride quickly wins him over, much to Yvonne's disapproval. As they attempt to leave, they find a car blocking the entrance, despite the clear "no parking" sign. Wasting no time, Driss aggressively confronts the driver, grabbing him by the shirt and forcing him to move the car. Philippe is amused and impressed by Driss's boldness, though Yvonne, once again, disapproves. Their first stop is a museum, where Philippe plans to buy a piece of artwork. Driss, however, scoffs at the painting, dismissing it as nothing more than a red blotch on a canvas, and certainly not worth the money. Later, Philippe meets with a relative who expresses concern over Driss's background, noting that he has a criminal record and can be violent. Philippe, however, remains unfazed. He values Driss precisely because he treats him like an equal rather than someone to pity. That evening, after yet another failed attempt at charming Magali, Driss has dinner in the kitchen with Yvonne while they overhear Philippe dictating a letter. Claiming it's a private matter, Philippe insists they turn off the baby monitor. Yvonne then explains the situation. Philippe has been exchanging letters with a woman named Eleanor. The sender of the private letters Driss was forbidden to open. However, they have never actually met. Their relationship exists purely through writing. Before heading to bed, Driss playfully teases Yvonne about the way the gardener keeps looking at her, leaving her flustered. As Driss tries to sleep, strange sounds from the baby monitor catch his attention. Philippe is struggling to breathe. At first, Driss tries to ignore it, but he can't. He rushes to Philippe's room, gently guiding him through the attack with soothing words and a cool, wet cloth to wipe his face. Eventually, Philippe calms down and falls asleep, only to wake up moments later, saying he needs fresh air. This time, Driss doesn't hesitate. He places Philippe in his wheelchair, wraps him in blankets, and takes him out for a stroll by the river. It's the first time in a long while that Philippe has seen Paris at night. Feeling more relaxed, he explains to Driss that while medication helps, it can't completely stop the phantom pain he sometimes experiences. As they watch some women pass by, Philippe opens up further, admitting that due to his condition, he can no longer physically pleasure a woman. However, he has discovered that he can still feel satisfaction through ear massages, as they are particularly sensitive areas for him. When another wave of phantom pain threatens to return, Driss offers Philippe a drag from his joint. Though skeptical at first, Philippe soon enjoys it. Later, they visit a restaurant, sharing a meal and exchanging jokes. Feeling comfortable, Philippe decides to reveal more about his past. He met his wife during their student years, and after getting married, she suffered 5 miscarriages before being diagnosed with a terminal illness. That's when they decided to adopt Elisa. Philippe was always drawn to competition, extreme sports, and speed, and paragliding was his passion. But one fateful day, bad weather caused him to crash, breaking his vertebrae. Despite everything, he insists that his real handicap isn't being in a wheelchair. It's having to live without his wife. As they continue laughing and joking, Philippe suddenly remembers the date and realizes Driss has officially passed his 1-month trial. He is now hired full-time. But first, he has an important task, returning the Fabergé egg he stole. It was a gift from Philippe's wife, who gave him one every year, each marking a year of their life together. He now has exactly 25 of them. The next day, Driss visits Mina outside her school, but she's upset with him. She complains that he never responds to her messages unless he needs something, like asking her to find the stolen egg. She also warns him that the police have been calling their house. Later, Driss goes to see Adama, who confesses that he was caught with 30 grams of an illegal substance. Driss offers to take him to lunch, but Adama refuses and instead gets into the same suspicious car from before, raising Driss's concerns even further. Back at Philippe's house, Driss sits in while Philippe dictates a letter to Eleanor through Magali. However, Driss finds his poetic writing style overly dramatic and suggests that Philippe should be more direct. He's also shocked to learn that Philippe has been exchanging letters with Eleanor for 6 months without ever seeing a picture of her. When Driss spots her phone number on one of the letters, he takes it as a sign and impulsively calls her. Caught off guard, Philippe is forced to take the phone and finally speak to Eleanor outside of their usual written exchanges. Their conversation goes so well that Philippe begins calling her regularly, even just moments before he and Driss attend an opera. During the performance, Driss struggles to take it seriously, laughing at the elaborate costumes and making fun of the dramatic scenes. The next day, Driss convinces Philippe to exchange pictures with Eleanor and selects one of him in his wheelchair. Later, while he is painting, Elisa bursts into his room, asking for cigarettes and mocking his attempt at being artistic. Annoyed, he kicks her out before going to see Philippe, who is currently asking Yvonne to switch the chosen picture for one of him before he became quadriplegic. She hides the picture inside the escort file just before Driss barges in, complaining about Elisa and insisting that Philippe needs to discipline her, something Yvonne agrees with. Philippe promises to talk to her but is more surprised when Driss accidentally reveals that he has been painting. Days pass, and the friendship between Philippe and Driss continues to grow. Driss takes him to play in the snow and even brings him along when he goes for a run. Philippe buys Driss his first suit and finally scolds his daughter while Driss secretly listens in through the baby monitor. When Driss finishes his first painting, he shows it to Magali, who slaps him when he tries to kiss her. However, Philippe likes the painting and promises to try selling it. They continue having fun together, enjoying things like getting a faster car, sharing joints, and even hiring escorts. When Felipe's birthday arrives, he isn't very excited. Every year, he pretends to be surprised about the party while having to meet relatives who only visit on this occasion to check if he is still alive. While Philippe and the guests enjoy live classical music, Driss searches for Elisa, finding her crying in her room after taking some of Yvonne's pills, though they won't harm her. She confesses that Bastien broke up with her and called her names, so she asks Driss to talk to him, which he agrees to do for a price. Meanwhile, Philippe shows Driss's painting to a relative and manages to sell it for 11,000 euros. Driss returns to the dining room and chats with Yvonne, who reveals that Magali is in a rocky relationship with a guy named Fred, giving Driss a bit of hope. As the party winds down, Philippe makes Driss listen to some of the most famous classical pieces, but Driss only jokes in response. Once the band finishes playing, he grabs his iPod and plays Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind and Fire before breaking into an impressive dance routine. His energy is contagious and soon the entire party joins in, much to Philippe's delight. Later, when putting Philippe to bed, Driss opens Eleanor's latest letter. She has sent a picture of herself, revealing she is quite beautiful, and suggests they finally meet in person next week when she visits Paris. On the day of the date, Yvonne and Driss go through multiple outfits for Philippe until they find the perfect one. Since Yvonne will be the one taking Philippe to the meeting, Driss uses his day off to visit Bastien, threatening him until he agrees to apologize to Elisa and bring her croissants every day. He also demands that the boy fix his hair. Afterward, Driss visits his mother at work, but only watches her from a distance. At the restaurant, Yvonne and Philippe wait for Eleanor, who is running very late. After waiting for an hour, Philippe gives up and calls Driss to pick him up. As he leaves the restaurant, he fails to notice that Eleanor is arriving at the same time. That same night, Philippe takes Driss with him on his private plane and gives him the money he earned from selling the painting, making him incredibly happy. The next morning, they arrive in the countryside, where Philippe decides to go paragliding, dragging Driss along with him. Driss initially refuses, but after panicking at first, he ends up enjoying the experience. When they return home, Adama is waiting for Driss. Noticing the scars on his face, Driss scolds him, but Adama still refuses to reveal what's going on in his life. Driss makes him wait in his room while he calls Mina to reassure her and then goes to put Philippe to bed. However, Philippe isn't sleepy yet. As he and Driss look at a painting together, Philippe asks about his family. At first, Driss is reluctant to share, but eventually, he opens up. He reveals that Adama technically isn't his brother and his parents aren't really his parents. They are actually his aunt and uncle. They took him from Senegal when he was 8 because they couldn't have children. His real name is Boukari Bassari, but since other kids had the same name, they started calling him Idris, which later became Driss. Eventually, his aunt miraculously conceived a child, and after his uncle died, other men came into the picture, leading to more children. Just as Driss had advised Philippe about Elisa, Philippe now points out that Adama needs discipline. As a result, he fires Driss, believing he should be with his family rather than spending his entire life taking care of an old man. The next morning, after Bastien delivers his daily croissant, now with a better hairstyle, Driss packs his bags and prepares to leave. Magali comes to say goodbye, and when Driss tries to flirt with her one last time, she introduces him to her partner Fred, short for Frederic, revealing that she isn't interested in men. Driss immediately gives up. On his way out, he returns the baby monitor to Yvonne and teases her for lying about Magali just to mess with him. In return, she gives him the escort file he had started, and he is disappointed to find that the picture he had chosen was hidden inside. Driss throws the file away but keeps the picture. Outside, he sees a car once again blocking the entrance. Even though he no longer works there, he insists they move it. When Adama questions him, Driss says it's a matter of principle. A few hours later, the two brothers pick up their mother at the station. Meanwhile, back at the house, Philippe has dinner with his new caretaker, who is dull and uninteresting. Finding the company unbearable, Philippe decides to leave the table without even taking a bite. With Yvonne out on a date with the gardener, there's no one there to scold him for it. As time passes, Driss returns to his old life. He reconnects with his old friends and warns the men in the suspicious car to stop bothering Adama. During a job interview for a position he lacks experience in, Driss impresses the employer by calling himself pragmatic and using all the art knowledge he gained while working with Philippe, landing him a job as a driver. Meanwhile, Philippe continues to dislike his new caretaker and is in a constant bad mood. One night, he refuses help from anyone in the house despite experiencing severe phantom pain. Concerned, Yvonne calls Driss, asking him to come over. This leads to the scene from the beginning, where the police chase them down and later escort them to the hospital. After that little adventure, Driss drives Philippe to the coast, where the sight of the sea helps calm him down. Sometime later, Driss helps Philippe shave his overgrown beard before taking him to a restaurant for lunch. However, he doesn't stay, as someone else will be keeping Philippe company today. Driss wishes him luck, finally returns his Fabergé egg, and leaves. Philippe begins to worry about being alone until he sees his date, Eleanor, who is delighted to see him and doesn't mind the wheelchair at all. In real life, Count Philippe Pozzo di Borgo now lives in Morocco, where he is remarried and has 2 daughters. The real Driss, whose name is Abdel Yasmin Selou, has his own business and is also married with 3 children. The 2 men remain very close friends to this day. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos like this. Thanks for watching.